Pennsylvania, and it's something that really changed how I saw the importance of missions and going out and stepping out into whatever God has called you into doing. And so I am going to use a little bit of what I learned from his teaching, and then I'm also going to spice it up with my own. So I really hope that this really blesses you guys like it has blessed me. Sorry if I'm like talking too fast or just sound really weird. I'm really nervous.
So you're fine. You're great, Brittany.
Thank you.
Just breathe. Just breathe.
Alright. So I am going to read a little bit of scripture. So in Jonah, real quick, I'm just going to say that I never actually read the story of Jonah prior to hearing that teaching. I had a very shallow understanding of the story, very childlike. I knew there was a guy and he got ate by a whale, and like the whale spit him out somewhere. I didn't know where, and that was kind of it. So, has anybody else ever had that experience? Like
The cartoon version.
Yes, the cartoon version.
The shallow part, not the spinning
The
out.
shallow part, yeah.
The shallow part. Okay, so in Jonah 1 verse 2, well, we'll start in verse 1. The word of the Lord came to Jonah, and he said, go to the great city of Nineveh and preach against it, because its wickedness has come up before me. So he was told to go to Nineveh and to preach to them, but Jonah didn't want to preach to them. He had no desire to save them, to share God's love with them. And so he ran and he headed for Tarshish, which was the exact opposite direction from where he was supposed to be going. He was trying to flee from the Lord. And if anybody else, I have tried to flee from the Lord and His will, and we know that that's not possible. You're never going to get away from Him. He has a way of using everything to work out for His favor and His glory. And so Jonah boards his boat, headed for Tarshish, and the Lord sent a great wind on the sea, and a violent storm arose and threatened to break up the ship. And Jonah, he is sleeping below deck peacefully, he wasn't really paying attention. He was trying to get away from doing what God has called him to do. And so the sailors, they all cast lots, and the lot fell on Jonah, and they asked him, are you the one who is causing us all this trouble? And, he says, throw me overboard. It is me. Throw me off the boat. And, the seas will calm. And so they tried to row back to land instead. They even tried praying to their own gods, and none of that worked. And then they cried out to the Lord and said, please, Lord, do not let us die for taking this man's life. Do not hold us accountable for killing an innocent man, for you, Lord, have done as you please. And they took Jonah and threw him overboard, and the raging sea grew calm. And at this, the men greatly feared the Lord, and they offered a sacrifice to the Lord and made vows to him. So it's funny how God can work that way. How, in one instance, they're praying to their own gods, and then they see the power of the one true God of the universe, and they were saved, by that. God forgave them, Gosh, just that. And so then
I think that's why we've got dragonflies everywhere.
Yeah.
Mosquitoes.
I know, I saw the dragonflies.
They're amazing.
it needs to come eat this one right in front of my face.
It's on the Gulf.
And so then a huge fish came and swallowed Jonah, and Jonah was in the belly of the fish for 3 days and 3 nights. And just a brief interjection, that is a reference to the death and resurrection of Jesus, which I did not know and came to know that. So I just want to share that tidbit in case somebody else knows that is in reference to that. And from inside the fish, Jonah prayed to the Lord.
For offspring.
Prayer
For
answered.
offspring.
Keep going, Brittany.
For offspring.
And
Might be worse in Uganda.
Yeah.
Take that with you.
listen, in Guatemala, the bugs eat me alive there.
Yeah.
I've never had bugs come at me like they do in Guatemala, and they just tear me, and they tear my legs apart. It's horrible. I've had scars. Anyway, I get distracted very easily. I'm like, shiny.
Yeah.
So I come back around, but sometimes I just gotta take the detour with me. And so in the belly of the fish, Jonah is praying to God and praising God as well. And then the Lord commanded the fish, and it vomited Jonah onto dry land. And where do you think the fish vomited Jonah up onto dry land at? Yes.
Oh,
Where
yeah.
he was supposed
To go.
And so then the word of the Lord came to Jonah a second time. Go to the great city of Nineveh and proclaim to it the message I give you. And so Jonah obeyed the word of the Lord because, well, I wouldn't want to get eaten by another fish. So I'm going to go ahead and go and do what he says. So Jonah went a day's journey into the city, proclaiming 40 more days and Nineveh will be overthrown. The Ninevites believed God. A fast was proclaimed, and all of them, from the greatest to the least, put on sackcloth. When Jonah's warning reached the king of Nineveh, he rose from his throne, took off his royal robes, covered himself with sackcloth, and sat down in the dust. And it's so funny because Jonah didn't want to do this. He did not want to go to them and proclaim the message that God told him to say, and he did a very wishy-washy, he wasn't excited about it. He was just like, hey guys, 40 more days and God's bringing some wrath over here.
Yeah.
And like, that was it, but even just that simple word, it says they put on sackcloths and they began to fast. And even the king rose from his throne and took off his royal robes and covered himself with sackcloths and sat down in the dust and said, by the decree of the king and his nobles, do not let people or animals, herds or flocks taste anything. Do not let them eat or drink, but let people and animals be covered with sackcloth. Let everyone call urgently on God. Let them give up their evil ways and their violence. But to Jonah, this seemed very wrong, and he became angry with God, and he prayed, and he said, isn't this what I said, Lord, when I was still at home? That is what I tried to forestall by fleeing to Tarshish. I knew that you are a glorious and compassionate God, slow to anger and abounding in love, a God who relents from sending calamity. And the Lord asked him, is it right for you to be angry? And Jonah walked away, and he sat down in a place east of the city. And God still took care of him there, even in his anger towards God for saving people that he didn't feel deserved to be saving. God took care of him. And Jonah was still angry. And the Lord said, you've been concerned about a plant that God provided for shade for him, and then died because he also then sent, I think it was a worm that chewed the plant, and it withered and died. And the Lord said, you have been concerned about this plant, though you did not tend it or make it grow. It sprang up overnight and died overnight. And should I not have concern for the great city of Nineveh, in which there are more than 120,000 people who cannot tell their right hand from their left, and also many animals? And so, to me, I think this whole thing the whole book speaks volumes on the importance of missions. That just one person saved an entire city from the wrath of God. And some people, you know, they look at missions and they think, oh man, I got to go to this third world country and I got to, you know, I'm going to be living in squalor and whatever, you know, the stereotypical thoughts that people assume come with missions. And in some cases that is true depending on where you're going. In a lot of instances, it's not always true. You know, a lot of places do take care of their missionaries. You know, you're coming from far away, and so they do take care of their missionaries. But that missions isn't always far away. Sometimes missions is right where you're at. Sometimes missions is in a different state. I've done mission work in West Virginia, 3-4 hours away from our home. So it doesn't always mean that you're going to be going far away, but you need to be open to the idea of doing that and taking that leap of faith in the direction God has called you to, because God's going to bless that work. God's going to bless you also in general. He's going to change your life. The first mission I went on back in 2015, it was real crazy. I mean, all these coincidences were occurring around me. There's no such thing as coincidences. You know, it's God's work. But he put these people in my path that I had no idea who they were. And they were talking about this mission trip that this guy who had no clue who he was putting together. And these kids were walking around barefoot over burning hot garbage to try to find anything they could find to trade in for money. And that really spoke to me. I heard nothing else. That's all I heard about this trip. And I just like interjected into their conversation, like, excuse me, who is this person? Where's he going? When's he going? I want to go. And they told me who it was. I went and talked to him. He had deer in headlights look, like this crazy person is coming to me, wanting to go on this mission. I don't know who she is. And she's very like in my face. And my husband, he was the same way. I never expressed the desire to do mission work up until that point. And I said, I'm going to Guatemala. And he said, wait, what? Like, what's happening? But he always supported me on that. And the devil will try to attack your mission. He will try to attack you any way he can, through fear, through anxiety, through illnesses. I had so much anxiety up until I paid for my trip, and then the anxiety left me. Right when I was gathering the money to pay for my trip, I went and got money out of my savings account, and she asked how much I wanted. I said, I need all of it. And she said, are you sure you want all of it? And I said, yes, I need every dollar. And she said, well, your total is $666.
Oh.
Are you sure that you don't want me to leave $1 in the bank for you? And I said, no, I need every bit. I have more money in the car. I'll mix it together. It'll be fine. And that's what I did. But I did pause for a minute when I heard that, because that fear struck me again. Is this the sign that, you know, I'm waiting for? And I put it in the back of my mind, and I pushed on. And a week before my trip, I then got the flu. I never get sick. Never. And that happened, and I was scared again that I wasn't going to be able to go. I wasn't going to be well enough to go, and I ended up being well enough to go by the end of that week, thank God, and never had an issue on the trip. It was an amazing trip, a true blessing. So you just never know what can happen, what kind of blessings are going to come your way from just doing the small missions. Who needs to hear God's love from you is the most important thing, because a lot of people have also heard have had Christians coming at them in a condemning way, telling them they're going to go to hell if they don't do this, and that's not loving. And sometimes, you know, somebody might need that loving gospel from you to change their heart. And so that is the importance of missions. And I think the book of Jonah is a real example of that, of how you know, we try to run from these things that are on our heart because sometimes we don't know what to do with them, because God shows us this huge plan and you think it's not for you. You think it's not me, it can't be me, you picked the wrong person. And that's not always true. And, you know, this shows that He's going to get you where you need to go, whether you want to be there or not. And then once you're there, you need to do what He's asking you to do, because somebody is waiting for you, for your words, for the love of Jesus to shine through you. So that's all I got.
That's great.
Amen. Thank you.